You're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
4 seconds left. In front. Happy moment. The Tampa Bay Lightning have won the first Stanley Cup. And the Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Stanley Cup. Lightning strikes twice. The Tampa Bay Lightning win their second straight Stanley Cup.
Welcome into RBLR Lightning. My name is Chris. Where the Lightning have done the impossible and pulled off the sweep. The brooms are out. Kind of wish Emily was giving away some brooms at Game 4. I thought that would have been pretty cool. A little cocky, but nonetheless, it's awesome. I'm feeling good right now, and I got two guys here with me to talk about all the action that we've missed. I got Mr. Jake Ricker of the Bolt Report. Jake, how are you doing, man?
I am doing fantastic, Chris. The Lightning pull off the sweep. They dominate the Panthers in round number 2 and are heading back to the Eastern Conference Finals for the third year in a row. I'm hyped, Chris. I'm ready to go. I'm ready for this third round to start. I can't wait anymore.
Need like an echo in there going, row, 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 row. Along with us, too, is Mr. Matt Ganning of the Lightning Rod Pod. Matt, how you feeling, man?
It doesn't get much better than this. It gets a little bit better, but it doesn't get much better. It's been a while since I last recorded with you guys. Did anything significant happen in that time span? I'm not entirely sure, but no, I'm happy to be back, and I'm quite excited. And this conference finals couldn't come sooner, my man.
Yeah, we're on a series break right now, kind of waiting for the Bolts to get back into action, kind of killing some time, twiddling our thumbs, checking the sports cast and seeing what's going on, waiting for the Bolts to get back on the ice. So as we do that, obviously, I kind of want to go over some predictions first here really quickly. Matt, you had the Lightning in 7. Jake and Eureka in the background there. They had them in 5. I had them in 6. So obviously we were all wrong, but it was good to be wrong because it was wrong in the right way, if you know what I mean. The sweep happened. Overall, the series to me was just a crazy series. It was, it's funny. We kind of talked about it a little bit, was how we thought it was going to be a high-scoring series, and it wasn't. It was complete opposite of that, really. The Bolts really dominated Game 1, and then Games 2, 3, and 4 were really close. Florida hung around. Vassie's just Vassy, man. Phenomenally locked in since Game 7 against Toronto. Get into some stats here in a little bit. But Jake, man, you said Bolts in 5. You were the closest. Obviously, how are you feeling about this series overall, man?
Feeling great. Yeah, no, I was the closest in the predictions, and now I thought that was going to be a little bit of a bold prediction for me going in 5, and yet the Lightning said no. We're doing it in 4, which was extremely impressive. Listen, they came out strong. They knew what they had to do, and they dominated in this series. There's no question about it. So it was really impressive. I had a feeling the Lightning would bode well against the Florida Panthers, who had been struggling in the postseason. I mean, I know they got through Washington in 6, but you could just tell that they didn't. It wasn't as close of a series. Bit of a blowout as you might think. That series could have easily gone 7. The Capitals could have easily won that with a couple of things that went differently. But the Lightning came out immediately. They shut down Florida in their own building. And I think that goal in Game 2 by Ross Colton and the pass from Nikita Kucherov with what was 3.8 seconds left in the second period, I think that killed the Panthers. I think right then and there, that just sucked the life out of every single Panthers player and fan, and gave the Lightning all the confidence they needed to move throughout the rest of this series.
You're right. That goal, I think you're right. That goal, it's definitely sucked all the energy out of the few fans that were in that arena were pretty quiet the first 2 home
Shots
games.
Fired, man. Wow.
They did have. But Matt, you had the Bolts in 7. How did you feel about this series, man? Obviously, you thought the Panthers had a chance to take us deep. What did you see the Bolts do that we were able to propel in the sweep?
Surprised, to say the least, for sure. I mean, I expected, it to be reminiscent of that Toronto series where both teams are just going to have their offense out all the time and just run and gun style of play. Just don't look back. Just get everything on net style of play. And I predicted Bolts in 7 because losing Braden Point, I didn't expect him to be back in the series at all, or at least maybe not until like later on in the series. So I was expecting a similar style series as Toronto, but I'm not sure if it's the series that we had against them last year, where we just kind of figured out how they play and what style that they're gonna play and how to shut it down. I'm not entirely sure like what the X factor was for this series. It just seemed like the entire team bought into John Cooper's system yet again and just played an actual a team style of play that I have not seen from this team since game 5 of the Stanley Cup Finals last year. I mean, it was just a complete utter, not just a shutdown game, but shutdown series. Like they would get what they needed to and then just prevent defense all their way to a sweep. I'm still just utterly shocked by it. The Panthers, they had their chances. It's not like they were dead in the water from game 1, even though, we did put that, 5-1 game 1. Game 1 was kind of weird, but you could see the next 3 games, Panthers, they wanted it. They came out to play, but the Lightning just had an answer for them at every single corner. And even when the Panthers could figure out the actual skaters, I mean, they had to also get past that brick wall we call Vasilevskiy. I mean, just talking about it in hindsight makes it seem like such an impossible task. And I'm excited that this team has brought out this new level of play that, again, we haven't seen for over a year. We didn't see much of it during the regular season. If this series has taught me anything, it's to not over-evaluate the regular season. Again, we've still got at least 8 games to go, at most 14 games to go, but a lot of hockey left over. But again, if they can replicate what they did in this series and game 7 of that Toronto series, I mean, there's nobody that can stop them.
Yeah, and clearly we were all wrong in this series prediction, but like I said, it was the wrong and the right way. We're happy with the sweep. The Bolts get to rest up a little bit here, and it's funny about some of the analysts picking Florida in 7. One of them was Ryan Callahan, and the other one was John Tortorella. So that's kind of low for Cali, even taking the Panthers and in 7 against us. But all jokes aside, the Bolts were able to pull off the sweep. And Matt, you brought up a good point. That's going into this series, obviously the biggest question mark was Braden Point. Braden Point going down was awful. We all were just, oh my gosh, that's the hip that he just had his surgery on. Whatever happened, we don't know if it was his hip. Kind of looked like it to me. We haven't really heard much on that. It just seems to be day to day. As far as I'm kind of agreeing with Jake. I don't think, God, I just don't see it happening. If it does, it's a miracle. Jake, man, how did you think? Obviously, we fared well in this series because we swept them, but what did you expect in this series without Point? Did you think the Bolts were going to be able to fill in that role? Did you think we were going to struggle a little bit? How do you think we did overall?
I thought they would be okay, and there's one reason for that, and it's because, I thought they'd be okay if they go 11-7. If they had put Riley Nash in there, I'm not sure how things would have played out, if they would have played differently, but the Lightning have had really good success when going 11-7. We've seen this over the regular season over the last couple of years. We've seen it in the playoffs. We've seen it right now. The Lightning excel at going 11-7. And I think a large part of that is due to Cooper and his coaching style. They're able to execute it really, really well. I think that was a big reason the Lightning were able to step in and fill in for Braden Point. Not only that, you look back to what we were just talking about, how the Lightning were able to shut down the Panthers, right? Maybe having an extra defenseman helped out in that. They were able to rotate the defenseman a lot faster, keep them fresh, and never give the Panthers an opportunity to even enter the zone. That's how it went for a lot of this series. So I think 11-7 had a large part of that too. And then I'd probably point to Ross Colton, who had an excellent series. He had a couple of huge goals. He's been huge this year. Started to score some big time goals over these last couple of postseasons. So Ross Colton and going 11-7, I think, were the 2 key reasons the Lightning were actually able to overcome that deficit of having Braden Point. Let me tell you something. If the Lightning are playing this good and then they get Braden Point back somehow later in either late in the Eastern Conference Finals or maybe even the Stanley Cup Finals, the rest of the NHL better look out.
Yeah, I mean, we pulled off a sweep without one of our best players and one of our clutch players at that. He's always clutch come playoff time. And you talk about it, guys like Colton really stepping up for us. So that says a lot about the Lightning losing a guy like Point. And you think, man, they're going to be deflated. But boy, it was complete opposite of what we expected. So, Matt, man, obviously, what were you thinking going into this series being down Braden Point? And how well do you think the Bolts fared, obviously, without him in?
Well, like I said with my prediction, having no Braden Point was good, made me choose Bolts in 7. I knew that the team was going to have to adjust, losing arguably their best center, best forward to some people. I mean, he drives the play and he is the beating heart of the offense, and again, he is captain clutch. I mean, I cannot, in the short time that he's been with this team, I mean, how many clutch goals has he has he factored in, whether it be scoring or dishing it. I was worried, honestly. Like, for some reason, I wasn't as scared or worried going into this series as I was with Toronto. Like, because with Toronto, that's uncharted waters. You never know. This could be the year that they finally get over the hump. And in hindsight, looking back, that Toronto series, that Toronto team, like, damn, they were pretty good. If they pushed us to the brink of elimination, I mean, and then just again looking back at this Panthers series, like, where did this team come from? Where were they 6 of those 7 games in Toronto? So yes, I'm never comfortable going into a playoff series, especially against the President's Trophy record-setting team Panthers. But I I'm with Jake on this one. I know we had talked about this before the playoffs, but their level of play just was not sustainable. They had so many comeback wins. They had a record-setting amount of overtime wins, 3-on-3 overtime wins. And I knew that it just wasn't going to last. I just did not see us being the team to put a stop to all that, especially in the fashion that we did in a sweep. Again, I'm still so speechless. That Ross Colton goal, again, that was just the dagger in the series. Andrew Burnett, he really kind of I know a lot of people are pointing fingers at him just not making the right adjustments. I know a lot of people are upset he put Joe Thornton in for game 4. Like, that's not a lineup changer. That's not something you do to boost the morale. He's more, I hate saying this because Joe Thornton's just such a legend. You know, I've got the utmost respect for him, but that's not what you do when you're facing elimination. They've got such a deep team. They've got a deep depth chart that you can plug somebody else in, but I'm kind of rambling here. I'm sorry, but again, you know, I was a little more confident heading into this series than the Toronto series, just for some reason being down a guy, and man, I guess the confidence paid off.
Yeah, I was confident going into it because the Bolts have been here before with guys like Cooch going down, Stamkos going down. We've seen it before, and they always seem to find a way to replace him, or the coaching strategy. It just goes to show, I think John Cooper is just such a good coach when it comes to stuff like that. And you can't replace a guy like Point. So what do? You know, you go 11-7, like Jake said. Maybe the defense was so fresh that we were able to just shut Florida down, because the defense in this series to me was just phenomenal. I mean, the block shots in game 2, guys, that 30-second montage or whatever it was of guys just going in and out of the locker room in game 2, Stammer subbing, Hagel in, and just the team was really, really putting their body on the line in this series. And they were showing the world what it takes to go for a three-peat, man. That's what it takes to get on the ice like that and take those shots and block those shots. And the Bolts did that tremendously in this series. And I think that really helped Vasilevskiy, because I think these were the things that we were really missing in the middle of the season when we were kind of going on those losing streaks, was we weren't blocking shots like this. We were leaving Vasi out to dry. And I don't want to say the Bolts were just taking it easy in mid-season and saving this for the playoffs, but it's kind of how it seems to me, because they really turned it on this series with these block shots and laying it all on the line. So I kind of wonder if the Bolts were like, all right, let's just get into playoffs and we'll turn it into playoff mode. So Jake, man, I think to me the most impressive thing in this series was the defense and Vasilevskiy himself. So how do you think the PK was able to shut down this powerful Florida power play?
Well, to be honest, I think a large part of that was just the Panthers power play was not good. I mean, The fact that you had a 0% coming into the game, into this series. I mean, that's not good at all, especially with how successful they were in the regular season. And the Lightning do have a very good penalty kill. They jumped on top of the Panthers, did not give them clean zone entries, didn't give them time to much. But again, if you watch a lot of the Panthers power plays, the announcers picked up on this multiple times. I think they kept trying the same thing. They kept trying to do the same thing over and over again, and the Lightning knew how to defend it, and they kept doing the same thing themselves. So when you don't change anything, you're not going to find success. They did eventually get one power play goal, but you cannot go 1 for 30, whatever it was, out of these two series and expect to win games. I mean, that was a huge problem for them. And as good as the Lightning penalty kill is, and they definitely did a good job continuing to shut down the Panthers, I think a large part of it was just the Panthers not finding success and not being able to make adjustments on their power play at all. And that was a big issue for them.
Matt, what do you think, man? The PK, the best of all time right now, or was the Florida power play just really, really bad?
I think that the Florida power play shut themselves down. Like when I was, I mentioned Andrew Brunette, the Panthers head coach. I follow a lot of Panthers feeds and whatever else, and I see a lot of people like going for Brunette's head, which is kind of ironic considering he's up for the Jack Adams Award and Cooper's not again. But that's besides the point. But when you can see the announcers picking up on it, that nothing is changing. They are trying the same exact plays. They're throwing the same exact unit out there after it was, I forget when they first changed it up. It was like game 3, I want to say, is when they put Hornquist out with the first unit. And that's eventually when they got their lone power play goal. But again, just trying the same exact thing over and over and over and expecting a different result. You've heard that before. And what kind of gets me is was that insane Kucherov to Corey Perry play? Was that game 1, correct? When he broke, what's his name? Ekblad's ankles for that crazy breakaway pass to Corey Perry.
Yes.
If we look at the footage from that game, you'll see that Kucherov tried the same type of move going to the inside of whatever the right defenseman on the Panthers was, trying to go on the inside of them. He tried it 2 or 3 separate times, and they weren't all on the power play, but they were all Kucherov going to that right defenseman. And finally, after it not working for that 3rd time, for that 4th time, he goes left. And what do you know? It works. I mean, after, seeing that it's not working, let's try something else, sure is, it works. And if we can just take a little bit of that and put it to that Panthers power play, see that it's not working. There's a shot blocker there. And you know what? Even if we get past that shot blocker, there's Andre freaking Vasilevskiy. It's not working. We have to make some adjustments. And Andrew Brunette, he wasn't up to the challenge. One thing that I mentioned on the Lightning Rod is one of the key factors in this series why I saw the Lightning were going to be advancing was because of coaching. And, no shade to Andrew Brunette, but you are not going to outcoach Scotty Bowman Jr. It's just not going to happen. And Cooper had him, he had him at every single angle. This wasn't a huge line matching series at all, but just Cooper had the better of him every single chance. And Andrew Brunette just did not play an adaptive style of hockey because like we have seen in just these 2 series so far, they are black and white, night and day, different types of series. And John Cooper and the rest of the Tampa Bay Lightning, they know when to adjust. They know when things aren't working and they know what to change. And, the results speak for themselves. And the Panthers, they just were not up to the challenge, whether it be the power play or even strength.
Yeah, and the PK has really been good this entire postseason so far. We really shut down Toronto and guys like Austin Matthews. And even though they took us to 7, that was a weird series. Lots of dumb penalties on the Bolts and lots of 4-on-4s and shorthanded goals. And then it seems like we really cleaned that up in this series. Like the defense to me, just in the neutral zone and at the blue line, was just really, really good at just shutting Florida down, man. This really tipping the pucks, getting in the line of passes, I think they really frustrated Florida. Like, I think Florida expected us to play a different style, and we went completely let's keep this game low scoring. We can play this type of style. It's not Florida's style, but the Bolts can do it. The Bolts can play so many different ways because we have so many different skill sets and players at different positions that are able to do this for us. So this is what happens when you build and you draft a good team and you put really good quality lines together. These guys really come together when you need them. Hence, to me, was just so crisp in this series. It was so nice to see because I was so tired of calling the team out for letting Vassy hang out to dry and it's odd man rushes. And we're all like, man, what's wrong with Vassy? But speaking of Vassy, he's been absolutely phenomenal since Game 7. Man, where would we be without him right now, right? Where would we be without the wall and net? Couple of some serious stats for Vasilevskiy here real quick. In his last 7 series clinching games, 200 shots against, only 1 goal allowed. 200 shots and 1 goal allowed in some series clinching games. He also has the most series clinching shutouts now with 6. He's in first place with that, and he's so young, man. Like this guy is going to go down as one of the greatest goalies of all time, if not the greatest goalie of all time. He might solidify himself at the Mount Rushmore of hockey, like they were talking about, man. It's just the play from him come playoff time. And, I was a little worried there in the beginning, but Toronto was a really good forechecking team. And we just struggled to stop them from the odd man rushes. But man, since Game 7, Vassy has just been absolutely phenomenal. He was huge in Game 4. The saves he was making right at the end of Game 4 when it was the last rush for Florida, like that diving save and Sergachev's in the net behind him. Like the team was really laying out for Vassy, and I think that just boosts his confidence even more. So, Jake, what the heck did you see from Vassy in this series, man?
He's just locked in. I mean, he's got that focus on him where he's so good at following the puck and knowing where it is at all times. He's got unbelievable flexibilities. He can get across at any time that he needs to be. It is truly remarkable to see what Andrei Vasilevskiy is doing. I mean, he's at the point where as long as he plays long enough, he will break some of Martin Brodeur's records that most people thought maybe were unbreakable for at least the foreseeable future. I mean, that's how good Vasilevskiy is. But I think a lot of it is his competitiveness. I mean, he does not like to lose. He likes to play as much as he possibly can. Heck, when the Lightning got the sweep, if you go back and look at the video footage, everybody was smiling and celebrating except for one man. It was Andrei Vasilevskiy. He wants to win it all. He's never satisfied. And I think it's his drive that pushes him to be the best that he can be. And as soon as you think you know who Andrei Vasilevskiy is, he does something else amazing and continues to just blow everybody out of the way. And it's seriously impressive. And I also wonder, too, I think his teammates going out there and sacrificing the body and blocking shots for him also gives him an extra boost. It takes a lot of stress off of him as well, and he can make you some more saves. But he's been unbelievable. Once again, he's been locked in since probably Game 6, honestly, against Toronto, especially in Game 7. But listen, if Andrei Vasilevskiy continues to do what he do, the Lightning will always have a chance to win games. And it's quite honestly why a lot of the times, experts or whoever will pick the Lightning. They always give the advantage to the Bolts when it comes to goaltending, just because Andrei Vasilevskiy is so good. It's so impressive to watch what he does.
Matt, what are you seeing from Vasilevskiy, man? These past couple games, he's just been lights out.
Dude, I'm not entirely sure. He reminds me a lot of Nikita Kucherov, where in the fact that he wants to be the best. Like, we know Kucherov, he is a great, phenomenal player, but when he is not the best, when he's not his best, we can all kind of notice it. It's actually plain as day. We notice that Kucherov is taking it to heart. If Vasilevskiy has a bad game, he just kind of brushes it off. It's gone. It never happened. All that matters is the next game, and he's going to try his hardest to play his best that next game. I mean, he is unreal. His size has a lot to do with it, but size does not matter when you can move like a Russian gymnast. When you can combine those two things together, and his shot tracking and his pass tracking, you combine all those things together, you get Andrei Vasilevskiy. I mean, he is hands down the best goalie in the league right now. I don't care what you say, Rangers fans. It's not Shesterkin. Give him a couple more years. He may be, but at this rate, I mean, Vasilevskiy looks like he is not even close to slowing down. He's still relatively air quotes here, young for a goaltender. He's 27, maybe 28 at the most. I mean, that's still incredibly young. Like Jack Campbell never got his starting job until about last year, maybe the year before, and he's like 30 or 31. He's still so incredibly young, and if he can give us 5 more years of this style of play, I mean, he could retire and be a first ballot Hall of Famer lock, no questions asked. You redraft that 2012 draft. Yeah, 2012 draft. He's going first overall. I mean, he has just shattered every single high expectation and still manages to come out and just be not only the best goaltender in the NHL, but arguably a top 3 just player in the NHL. He is always ready to go. Nothing ever shakes him. Having a great stellar defense in front of him really does a lot for him. I'm going to go off on a quick tangent here, but I'm sure you guys have seen every now and then, fan of another team, they say, oh, Vasilevskiy only gets carried by that awesome defense in front of him. And that's such a hilarious take to me because it could not be farther from the truth. I think it's the absolute inverse to where Vasilevskiy makes the defense look so good because he bails them out quite often. Somebody better test this guy. I mean, he cannot keep getting away with this, Jesse Pinkman. I have no idea what's in his blood, if he's human or not, but my God, if he can still continue to play this way and perform the way that he does and just keep the same, whatever he's doing, just keep doing it, man. He is just so stellar. We have not seen goaltending like this since Brodeur, since Hasek, like since Waugh. I mean, he is just incredible. I don't care what you say, top 3 player in the NHL right now. Automatic Hall of Fame.
And it's funny, I think I told this once, but went to an open practice one time and someone in the crowd asked, we had a question and answer with Cooper, and they said, Cooper was saying how he was asking Vasi what he's going to do on his day off. And Vasi said, hydrate and stretch, coach. So Vasi on his days off is hydrating and stretching clearly. And it is definitely paying off because the dude is an octopus out there. Crazy performance from him. I love it, man. We really have a goalie that's just solidified himself as one of the best of all time already. And I hope there's nothing more but good things to come from him. I hope he stays a Bolt for life, and I hope we find a way to always keep him around in net. So, all right. So that was a lot of the good things in this series. Obviously we came away with the sweep. There was a, kind of a, not so much a bad thing, but, Hagel, Brandon Hagel with a little bit of a cheap shot here. The call to me, I think, was the right call. Guys going down to the boards, give him a little that little push, cross check in the back. I think the fine was right. I don't think a suspension was necessary. Hagel's not known to really be a dirty player. Definitely a cheap shot though, but I agreed with the fine in this series. So Jake, how did you feel about this Hagel hit here?
I did not like it one bit. It was a bad hit for Hagel, period. The guy's going towards the board, looking at his numbers the whole time. He's got 2 hands on the stick, clearly cross-checks him right in the lower back, and it's a dangerous hit, no question about it. Now, TNT kind of went nuts with it and just, acted like it was the end of the world, but it was a bad hit. There's no question about that, and I was honestly surprised they didn't give him 5. I thought that was going to happen, but they didn't. And it was a cross check, no question about that. As for the fine and suspension thing, he was not suspended, but just fined. I hate the Department of Player Safety just doesn't know what they're doing. We all know that. These fines, let's be honest, they're not going to do anything to these guys. I mean, it's pocket change to these players, a $3,000 fine. Hagel's making over $1 million something right now, almost $2 million. It's $3,000 is nothing. These fines don't do anything. Honestly, trying not to be as much of a homer as I can, I thought he should have been suspended for at least a game because it was a bad hit. It was definitely a bad hit, and he can't do that. And he's got to learn. That's the important thing, right? Listen, Hagel's not a dirty player. He's never had a history of that, and that's why he wasn't suspended, because he's had no history. There was no injury. That's why he didn't get a suspension. And I hope that Hagel learns from this. I think he will, but he needs to understand that he cannot do that. It is an unacceptable hit. It's a dangerous hit. In fact, we saw it happen again in this series when the Panthers did the same thing. I believe it was Sergachev. He got checked in the back, kind of the same spot. But it's just something I hate to see it, period, in hockey. And it was a bad hit from Hagel. Hopefully, though, he has learned that, all right, can't do that. No, there's no defending that hit. It was a bad hit. But luckily, nobody was hurt. Everybody's okay. As long as Hagel learns from this, no harm, no foul.
All right, so I'm going to make this a two-part question real quick. So going forward, obviously we're going into the Eastern Conference Finals here. Do you think that there's anything that the Lightning need to improve on from this Florida series that we weren't so hot at, Jake?
Oh, man, it's tough. I mean, honestly, they played so good. They got the sweep done. I mean, they looked near perfect. The biggest thing, though, and it was something I was harping on in the series against Toronto, is for the love of God, please stop taking too many men on the ice penalties. They did it again in this series. In fact, there was even one that was called on the Panthers. Every Lightning fan, I'm sure, was like, oh, no, here we go again. Another 2 minutes. And then it was on the Panthers. I couldn't believe it. But the Lightning ended up doing it again anyway. And that is got to stop. I can't believe it hasn't come back to bite us more than already. But please stop taking those penalties. For my sanity, do not do that. I think that's the biggest thing, honestly. And I know it probably looks like I'm a big homer by not saying, oh, well, they're perfect. But I mean, really, there wasn't much to improve on. They played a really good series. They were good on the power play for the most part. They came out strong in each game. They didn't take the foot off the gas. They were able to play really good defensively. Vasilevskiy was locked in. I mean, what more could you ask for? Everybody was scoring too. So I honestly really don't think there is much to improve on. They looked fantastic. If they can keep playing this way, there's no doubt they can make another run for a Stanley Cup here.
Matt, the Hagel hit, what do you think about it? And do you think there's anything the Bolts need to improve on from this series?
Obviously, that's a bad hit. That's unneeded. It's unnecessary. I personally was surprised when they reduced it from a 5 to a 2. I'll take that every day. Even if that was the power play that they scored on, I'll take that. I think the right call would have been 5 minutes. Don't toss him for the game. Just give him the major, and no suspension. I don't think Hagel has warranted that. I don't think that play warranted a suspension, no matter who it is. Really, it was accidentally on purpose. Luosterainen, he was already off balance, which everybody in the NHL and everybody since Pee Wee hockey is told not to hit a guy off balance barreling into the boards, especially on a cross check where you're intentionally trying to throw the guy off balance. But it was just bad timing, bad positioning. It probably helped Hagel's case that Luosterainen stayed in the game. He played the next game. That definitely probably helped his case, but again, it's just unneeded. I think 2 minutes was definitely lenient for our favor. And, the refs, they had to have a conversation. They had to watch the replay and give themselves a reason on why it's not 5 minutes, but 2 minutes. So I'll get to your next question in a second. But either of you, Jake or Chris, is there anything that you saw that made it to where you could understand why it went from 5 to a 2? Me personally, again, I think it was maybe just the guy was already off balance. I'm not entirely sure. Again, I think 5 minutes would have been the correct call.
Yeah, I was surprised. I was with you. I thought we were getting a 5-minute penalty, and this was going to be a major swing in the game. I thought this was going to be, we're going to be in trouble here. The Panthers did look like they grabbed a bunch of momentum after that hit too, and then it kind of just disappeared after that. But I mean, I guess it was because he was off balance. That might have factored into why they reduced it to a 2. That's my best guess there, but I honestly don't know. I thought it was a 5-minute, and there was a play in a different game as well. It wasn't the same kind of play, but there was a big hit. I think it was in the Calgary Edmonton game, if I'm not mistaken, but they gave the guy 5 minutes of the game misconduct.
Oh, that was Lucic on Mike Smith.
Yes.
And that wasn't even as bad.
Right, which is why I was surprised they didn't give Hagel 5 in a game, honestly. But listen,
probably because the reputation that comes with Lucic. He likes to run goalies.
Listen, at the end of the day, it's in the past. They gave him 2. As I always say, good teams find ways to overcome, if you want to call it bad officiating or whatever. And that's what the Lightning ultimately did. That wasn't a bad call either. They got that call in their benefit, but the Panthers did not adjust and overcome. They could have used that as didn't. So I'm with you. I thought it should have been 5. I was surprised it was 2. My best guess is because they thought, well, he's off balance. And it really wasn't done on purpose, and that's why they reduced it to a 2-minute.
It was accidentally on purpose. But how about you, Chris?
I think it was a little bit of both. I think he was kind of already going down, and like I said, I don't think Hagel means to be a dirty player. His reputation's pretty clean as far as I know. So I think they kind of let us slide on that one a little bit. I was nervous at the time. I thought it was going to be a 5 because it's nasty when you watch it, even in slow motion, but at fast, full speed, man, it's a rough hit going to those boards like that going down. It's just a dangerous hit that I'm sure Hagel definitely learned his lesson, and Cooper gave him an earful in the locker room after that one. So,
especially with how clean they have been playing as well. Like, of the, few penalties that they did take throughout this series, a lot of, there was one bench minor, 1 or 2 puck over the glass, like, just not those are careless penalties, but at least not just like physical infractions, So cleaning up the game, I'm sure Cooper did definitely give him an earful. But to elaborate on your second question on what the Lightning could have done better, I'm stumped. I really am. I mean, I can point out that too many men call, that, pissed me off at the time. But, of course, looking at it in hindsight, everything's all good. No worries. To me, these 4 games, they played damn near perfect.
I agreed.
Like, they brought the physicality. They brought the team defense. I mean, everything they did was timely scoring. It was just everything you could have asked for out of this team without just every game being an extreme blowout. They were there in clutch scenarios. They didn't break down terribly defensively. You know what? I will tell you something, a pattern that I did notice, and it was, I hate to point fingers at the guy, but it seemed like in every single game, maybe the last 3 games, Ryan McDonagh, his early, like the first 5 minutes of each of those games, he made just bad clearing attempts. I'm not sure what it was, but he just was not there for those first 5 minutes and, at least 3 of those games. I mean, obviously he rectified all those mistakes. Nothing, terrible happened because of them, but it's just like, just kind of boneheaded errors. Again, throughout the rest of the game, throughout the rest of the series, he shored it up and everything was good. But again, otherwise, I've got nothing for you, man. Like, that's just nitpicking at that point.
Right. Well, I mean, hey, when you win 4 games in a row, it's hard to fight. I mean, you're obviously doing what you're supposed to do. And it's funny you mentioned Ryan McDonagh, because I had a friend ask me the same kind of thing. He's like, "Did you think Ryan McDonagh has not been good in this series?" And I honestly, I didn't notice it that much. I thought he was fine.
It was only early in the games. Like, once, after those first 5-10 minutes of each of those last 3 games of the first period, he was not invisible, but like the good invisible, where you just aren't necessarily noticing him unless he's, factoring it offensively. I think once he figured those couple of blunders out, he was fine. So I think he played fine.
I think also the bar is so high for McDonagh that even when you see a couple little slip ups, you start to think, what's wrong with McDonagh? He's normally, but I think he was still fine in this series overall. And by the way, can we talk about that in that last game, how many disallowed goals we had and the frustration for the fans, which by the way, as well, shout out to the fans. They have been excellent this year. I know we get a lot of crap for being quiet last year, but I don't know about you guys, but I think it has sounded much louder in that arena.
Yeah, Amelie's rocking for sure. I was there at Game 6. It was rocking, absolutely.
Yeah, might not be the loudest barn in the building, but compared to who our last opponent was, yeah, I went deaf compared to what their building was.
And you bring up a good point. It's really hard to point out the negatives when you're sweeping the President's Trophy winning Panthers, who were the highest scoring team in the league, and we were holding them to 1 goal and then a shutout in the game closing for Game 4. But it's just, you're right. You really can't point out anything bad. It's hard to do. They really played a good, really almost like you said, perfect series, man. It was crazy to see this team show up and show what they're really capable of. So moving forward here, man, obviously we got the finals coming up. We're not sure when the game is going to be yet. Sometime next week, obviously. It's kind of the wait and flicker our thumbs here a little bit, watch some other teams around the league. And other teams around the league are the Carolina Hurricanes and the New York Rangers, who are currently tied 2-2. Carolina has not won a road game yet. They seem to be really dominant at home, and they really struggle on the road. This series has gone back and forth. Game 5 coming up here tonight as we record here on this Thursday. Me personally, I don't really have a preference on who I want to play. I believe each team has its strengths and its weaknesses. I think if we play New York, it's going to be a goalie duel between Vasilevskiy and Igor. Obviously, two of the best in the league. Obviously, Igor having a great year this year. I feel like if we played Carolina, Carolina plays really good defense. They don't allow a lot of goals. They really shut you down with their stingy defense, and they can really score, man. Sebastian Aho, guys like Teravainen, they got some really good skaters that can score. And, you know, we struggled against New York this year. New York played us well. And if we play New York, you're going to have a lot of Ranger fans in Emily, unfortunately. A lot. So that kind of worries me as well. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, if we play the Rangers, we get home ice, if I am correct in there. No, I'm wrong?
No, it's so they're tied in points with the Rangers, but the Rangers have more regulation wins, which is why they would get home ice, unfortunately.
Okay. So we're on the road no matter what then. So the Bolts, the Bolts have been fine on the road. I'm not really too concerned about that. I guess to me, it's really a flip of the coin. I feel like we played our toughest test already in Toronto, in my opinion. I think Toronto was the team that took us to 7, was going to give us our toughest matchup. I hated the matchup from the beginning, so I'm not really worried about either team. If this team, the Lightning, if this team shows up and plays the way we did against the Panthers, I'm not worried about a single soul who's in front of us. So Jake, man, Rangers, Panthers, you don't care. Bring it on. What you got?
Yeah, well, it's funny. Personally, if I have to pick one, I'm going with Carolina. I think I'd rather play Carolina. We took care of them pretty well last year, even though this team is obviously very different from last year. Both the Lightning and Carolina, I have a little more confidence against Carolina. And all you have to do against Carolina, apparently, is beat them once. And then you're good, because they cannot win a road game, which is wild. It's very interesting to see. So, but I don't know what it is, but I have this weird feeling about the Rangers, and I'm a little nervous if we were to have to play the Rangers. And I know I've said this multiple times. We've all talked about this. Regular season does not matter. We know this very clearly from years in the past for the Lightning and what we've seen in the playoffs as well. But the Rangers seem to have had our number this year. And even though it's different, I just have this weird feeling that the Rangers are going to give us a hard time, and it would be a tough series. Now, it's going to be a tough series either way. This is the Eastern Conference Finals. It's the best of the best now. But, Chris, you're absolutely right, though. If this Lightning team shows up and then maybe even gets Braden Point back, who knows? I doubt it, but I don't know who could stop us. I think really on the other side, you're seeing both Carolina and Rangers fans saying, crap, I can't believe the Panthers lost in 4. Now we got to play the Tampa Bay Lightning again.
So I'm going to make this a 2-part question too. Do you think that this is too much time off for the Bolts? Do you think they'd be rusty in game 1, or do you think they come out and they're boom, ready to go? Because we've seen the Bolts struggle from time to time after taking long periods of time off in game 1s, and then we really bounce back strong in game 2. So what do you think? Which team do you think is going to show up game 1?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I've seen people talking about this. The Lightning do have an issue when it comes to rest. I don't know what the exact stats are. It's something I should probably go look into, but the Lightning definitely struggle after an extended period of time off. But there's 2 reasons why this doesn't worry me. The first one is the Lightning have lost a lot of game 1s over the last couple of years. They've struggled in game 1s for a while. Luckily, that was not the case against the Panthers, and they got the sweep. But that's been something the Lightning have dealt with and overcome recently. And usually, specifically, it's that first road game too, which is interesting. But so for that reason, it doesn't worry me too much, even if they do struggle in game 1. And the other thing is, too, the Lightning are banged up right now. They've been blocking. They have the second most blocked shots in the NHL. And, Braden Point as well. You want this series to go as long as possible to give every little chance that Braden Point can come back. Even if it's, a Stamkos situation where he comes back for one shift. and gets that one shot, one goal, maybe even to give that team a huge boost. So I want the 7 for the rest, get the players healthy, give a chance for Point to maybe come back as soon as he can. And the Lightning have struggled in the past in the first game. And the bottom line is for the Lightning, all they need to do is either win the first game or win 2 in a row, and it's over. I mean, because they do not lose in back-to-back games. And until that happens, I don't know how you're going to beat them.
And me personally, I'm all for the rest. Honestly, I think even if we were to lose game 1, we're used to it. We'll bounce back game 2 to game 3. I think right now, like you said, the rest, they really need it right now. Lots of block shots. I think this week off is going to be good for them. They were practicing today. They've been here before, man. We've been here the past 2 years. I'm not concerned about rest for the Bolts right now. I think it's important. Let the Canes and the Rangers beat the crap out of each other for 7 games and give us some beat up guys on the ice, man. I'll take it. I don't care how we three-peat, man. Give me guys that are black and blue and broken ankles. So Matt, man, what do you, Canes, Rangers, too much rest for the Bolts? What you got?
I want the Hurricanes for 2 reasons.
Okay.
One of the reasons is because if, let's say, unfortunately, we were to lose to the Hurricanes, they're my number 2 team right now. They're obviously Bolts number 1, always will be. But let's say if the Lightning lose, I'm gonna be cheering for the Hurricanes. So, I'd like
unacceptable. Get him off the podcast right now.
Oh, you want me to cheer for the Rangers? So it's always good to be beat by the team that goes and wins the final. Blah 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 blah. So that's like my not biggest reason. But I think that'd be a plus. But that's not gonna happen. I'm calling it right now. It's not gonna happen. But I would still like to play Carolina. I know I can't really harken back to last year. This team is rather different, even though they've kept the same core players. They've kept the same core principles of their game, but we solved them rather easily. Like we kind of stooped down to their level. I mean, they're a defense first team. I believe they were the team that allowed the fewest goals this regular season.
Correct.
And they can turn any single goalie into gold. Like, we saw with, what's his name? Nedeljkovic last year. I mean, he was a Calder candidate, and just like, when Nedeljkovic goes to Detroit, I mean, he just crumbles. They've got the ability to make any goalie look fantastic, but I think the Lightning, they figured them out rather easily last year. They've got better goaltenders. They've got better players this year, but I still think that they would have a better shot of knowing who they're up against, especially with, that recency of a playoff series we had against them. And, despite us winning that series in 5 games, it was closer than it looked. Like most of those games were only separated by 1 or 2 goals, I believe, if not all of them. And a lot of those goals, they were just, late in the game, timely scoring, just lucky, if I'm going to be brash. But I still think that we would fare against them better than the Rangers. We haven't, the Rangers, they've had our number all season, even though 2 of those 3 games, they were close. I'd like to see Vasilevskiy versus Shesterkin just because of the chaos it'll be and, which goalie's better, blah, 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 blah. I think that'd be entertaining. But again, I think New York's kind of a wild card. They could be anything. They can score at will and they can stop you. But I think they might have more flaws than the Hurricanes, and Lightning may be able to figure that out. So I am giving the slight edge to Carolina.
What about rest for you, Matt? Do you think that rest is going to be an issue?
No. I mean, if they can still just harness whatever they were doing in this series, have some of the guys rest and heal up. I get the points that you were making, Jake, saying, that looking at years past, they have struggled when they have finished a series early and they're waiting for their next opponent. And they do kind of spot a lot of teams that first game. Like, I look back to Boston in 2020 and New York 2021, and there's more for sure. But I'm not worried the slightest. I think, if anything, it will help us out in the long run. We might lose that first game, whatever. It just kind of, I'm not going to make any assumptions on it until I see that actual game and I can point out flaws or good things, what happens. But yeah, to be blunt, no, I think the rest is going to be only beneficial for the boys.
I got 2 questions I got to ask you guys, and one of them is, Matt, you brought it up, and I have to know now. You were talking about how that mentality of if you lose to a team, you want them to win the Stanley Cup, so you can say that we lost to the eventual Stanley Cup champions. Are both you guys that way? Is that how you think?
Not really.
For me, it's the complete opposite. As soon as we get beat by a team, I want them out in the next round. I am petty, and I am not for it. So I know, Matt and Chris, are you guys that way at all?
That's how I actually am, yeah. But I like the Hurricanes, so like I will be cheering for them worst case scenario.
Fair enough. What about you, Chris?
Nah, I'm totally against it, man. I'll be pulling for the Flames, or the Oilers, or the Avs, or whoever's left in the West. I'm not pulling for the team that's beating the Bolts.
All right, my next question, this is specifically for you, Chris.
Okay.
Is there anything that our fellow listeners here to this podcast can do while we're waiting for that next series to do? Maybe a little bit of shopping or something?
They can head on over to RBLR shop, check out what we got. We got all kinds of merchandise for you guys. It is some good stuff, man. Go check out the shirts that Eureka is making. He's making some good stuff, giving you guys the good content that you guys should be rocking around Tampa Bay here. So head on over to the shop if you can and make a purchase for us here or there. So I think that's all I had for the show tonight. Guys, this was a great show overall. I think we covered the goods, the bads. We got a lot of stuff coming up. Obviously, going into the Eastern Conference Finals, the Bolts are back. We're 8 wins away from the Stanley Cup. It's crazy to even think that. Obviously, we got to wait, and we'll get another show in here once we know who we're playing and give you guys our predictions and everything, and we'll go do a series recap, or series preview, I should say, on the upcoming team we're going to play. Like I said, it's a toss-up for me. Rangers, Canes, bring it on. Doesn't matter. The Bolts know what to do. The Bolts know what it takes to get the job done. So that's all I had for tonight. Matt, man, you got any final thoughts for us here before next week?
No, I think I rambled on enough tonight. I think I got everything I needed to out.
What are you talking about? We need more rambling.
Oh, more rambling. Don't get me going.
Jake, man, I'm going to give you the final word, man. Go ahead, take us home.
Hey, I will be rooting for whoever is behind in the series. I want this to go 7. Give us that rest. Get us healthy, ready to go. I cannot wait for round 3. It's going to be a fun one. Let's get these new guys another Stanley Cup and solidify ourselves as a dynasty because this team is playing unbelievable. So love it. Go Bolts.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.